Captain Jake Morrison walked through the quiet halls of the new Genesis. His boots made soft sounds on the metal floor. The ship had been his home for 30 years, just like it had been home to his father and grandfather before him. Everyone aboard this massive vessel had been born here. Their great-great-grandparents were the last humans to see Earth with their own eyes. The walls around him showed pictures from the old world. Green forests, blue oceans, and white clouds. Morrison had seen these images thousands of times, but they still made his chest feel tight. Earth was gone. It had been gone for 500,000 years. The HFY Empire had made sure of that. Morrison reached the archive room and pressed his hand against the scanner. The door slid open with a quiet hiss. Inside, Commander Lisa. Grant was waiting for him. She stood in front of a large screen that showed swirling galaxies and star maps. Her face was serious, the way it always got when she had important news. "Good morning, Captain," she said without turning around. "I have something you need to see." Morrison joined her at the screen. The image showed a section of space far from where they were hiding. Red dots marked HFY settlements and military bases. There were thousands of them, spread across dozens of star systems. "They're still out there," Morrison said. "It wasn't a question. More than that," Grant replied. She touched the screen and the image changed. Our long-range sensors picked up new activity. The HFY Empire is bigger now than it was when they destroyed Earth. They control half the galaxy. Morrison felt old anger rise in his chest. The HFY were supposed to be ancient history. When his ancestors fled Earth's destruction, they thought the reptilian aliens would eventually destroy themselves or fade away. Instead, they had grown stronger. "How many of them are there?" he asked. "That's the interesting part." Grant pulled up new data. "Our best estimates say there are only about 2 billion actual HFY left in the entire empire. The rest are slave species they've conquered over the centuries." Morrison stared at the numbers. 2 billion HFY ruling over trillions of other creatures. They've gotten lazy. Exactly. They use automated systems and slave soldiers to do. They're fighting now? The original HFY mostly sit in government buildings and give orders. Grant's voice carried a hint of excitement. "They think they're safe because they think we're extinct." The door opened and Dr. Ryan Cooper entered the room. He was younger than Morrison and Grant, but his eyes held the same anger that lived in every human heart. Cooper carried a small device in his hands about the size of a book. "Captain, you wanted to see the new armor system," Cooper said. He set the device on the table and pressed a button. Light flowed out of it and formed the shape of a human body. The light was silver and seemed to move like liquid. "This is our quantum fold armor," Cooper explained. "It can phase through most energy weapons. The HFY weapons will pass right through our soldiers like they're not even there." Morrison reached out to touch the light projection. His hand went right through it. "How long can it stay phased?" "About 30 minutes per charge. Long enough to get through their defenses and hit them where it hurts." Cooper pressed another button and the projection changed. Now it showed a human head with lines of light running through the brain. "This is the neural link combat system. It connects directly to a soldier's nervous system and speeds up their reactions by 300%. 300%? Grant asked. "A human with this system can dodge laser fire after it's been shot? They can calculate battle tactics faster than HFY computers. We've taken everything that makes humans good at fighting and made it better." Morrison nodded slowly. For 500,000 years, the humans on New Genesis had worked on only one thing: getting ready for this moment. They had studied every piece of data about the HFY. They had improved their technology beyond anything the aliens could imagine. They had prepared for war. "How many people are on this ship now?" Morrison asked. 10,400,000, Grant answered immediately. "All of them trained fighters. All of them ready to make the HFY pay for what they did to Earth." Morrison walked to the window that looked out into space. Stars dotted the darkness like tiny diamonds. Somewhere out there, the HFY Empire spread across the galaxy. They lived on worlds that should have belonged to humans. They breathed air that should have filled human lungs. They had taken everything from humanity and thought they had won. "Sir," Grant said quietly, "there's something else you should know. We've been running deep scans of HFY space for the past year. Their military is spread thin. Most of their ships are old and poorly maintained. They haven't fought a real war in over 50,000 years. They've gotten soft, Morrison. Sod, very soft. They rely on fear and automated weapons to keep their empire together. But they've never faced an enemy like us. They've never faced humans who have had 500,000 years to plan their revenge." Cooper stepped forward. "Captain, with your permission, I'd like to begin final preparations. We can have the first strike force ready to launch within a month." Morrison thought about his ancestors who had died when Earth burned. He thought about all the humans who had lived and died on this ship, never seeing a real sky or breathing real air. He thought about the debt that had been growing for 500,000 years. "No," he said finally. Both Grant and Cooper looked surprised. "We don't launch in a month. We launch in 2 weeks?" "Sir, that might not be enough time to—" Cooper started. "Doctor, the HFY destroyed our world 500,000 years ago. Every day we wait is another day they think they won. Every day we wait is another day they get to live in peace while our people float in the darkness between stars." Morrison turned to face them both. "We've been patient long enough. It's time to collect the debt they owe us." Grant smiled for the first time in months. "What are your orders, Captain?" "Send a message to all department heads. Full combat readiness in 72 hours. Begin production of quantum fold armor and neural link systems for our entire population. I want every human on this ship ready to fight." Morrison paused and looked back out at the stars. "And send a deep space transmission on the old emergency frequencies. It's time to wake up our sleeping brothers and sisters." Cooper's eyes went wide. "The sleeper ships?" "But Captain, we haven't heard from them in centuries. We don't even know if they're still out there." "They're out there," Morrison said with certainty. "Humans don't give up. They don't quit, and they don't forget. Somewhere in the darkness, 47 other ships are waiting for our signal. When they hear it, they'll know what we know. The long sleep is over." Grant began entering commands into her tablet. "I'll begin preparations immediately. What should I tell the crew?" Morrison was quiet for a long moment. When he spoke, his voice was hard as steel. "Tell them that our great-grandparents fled Earth as refugees. Tell them that we've spent 500,000 years drifting in the void like ghosts. But tell them that ghosts can be very dangerous. Things when they finally decide to come back." He walked toward the door, then stopped. "And tell them that the HFY Empire is about to learn what happens when you try to destroy humanity. They took our world. Now we're going to take theirs." The door closed behind him, leaving Grant and Cooper to begin preparations for humanity's return to the galaxy. Outside the window, the stars waited in silence, unaware that the greatest hunt in galactic history was about to begin. Lieutenant Colonel Amy Peterson floated in the pilot seat of the Silent Fury. The small ship was invisible to most sensors, painted black and designed to hide in the darkness between stars. Peterson had been chosen to lead humanity's first mission into HFY space in 500,000 years. She was the best pilot on New Genesis, and she had never forgotten what the reptilian aliens had done to Earth. "How much longer until we reach their territory?" asked Sergeant Ben Hayes from the seat behind her. Hayes was young but smart. He could break into any computer system the humans had ever found. If the HFY had secrets hidden in their networks, Hayes would find them. 2 hours, Peterson replied. She checked the ship's systems one more time. Everything was working perfectly. The quantum fold engines made no sound and left no trail. The HFY would never see them coming, Peterson thought. About Captain Morrison's orders. They were not supposed to start a war yet. This mission was about learning. They needed to see how strong the HFY really were. They needed to find their weaknesses. Most importantly, they needed to let the aliens know that humans were back. The Silent Fury crossed into HFY space and immediately began scanning. What Peterson saw surprised her. The border defenses were weak. A few old automated stations and some patrol ships that looked like they had not been updated in decades. This was not the military that had destroyed Earth. Ben, are you seeing this? She asked. Hayes was already working on his computers. I'm picking up their communication signals. Peterson, these guys are sloppy. Their encryption is so old I can break it without even trying. Do it. Hayes' fingers moved quickly across his keyboard. Within minutes, he was listening to Kethver. Military communications. His face showed confusion as he translated what he was hearing. They're complaining about budget cuts, he said. The base commander is angry because he only has 3 working patrol ships instead of 6. Another officer is saying their weapon systems have not been maintained in 20 years. Peterson steered the ship deeper into enemy territory. They passed 2 more border stations. Both were operating on automatic systems with no actual Kethver crews aboard. This was not the empire her ancestors had feared. There, Peterson pointed to a small outpost on a dead planet. That's our first target. Ben, what can you tell me about it? Hayes scanned the facility. It's a communications relay station. About 50 Kethver working there, plus maybe 200 slave soldiers from other species, light defenses. This should be easy, Peterson smiled coldly. Easy is good. We want to send a message, not start a full battle. The Silent Fury approached the outpost silently. Peterson activated the ship's advanced stealth systems and landed on the dark side of the planet. She and her team of 12 soldiers put on their quantum fold armor and checked their weapons. Remember the plan? Peterson told them. We go in quiet, disable their communications, take what data we can find, and leave. No survivors. The human soldiers moved like shadows across the rocky ground. Their armor phased through the outpost's energy barriers as if they were not there. The Kethver guards never saw them coming. Inside the facility, Peterson found exactly what Hayes had predicted. The Kethver workers were lazy and careless. Most of them were asleep or playing games on their computers instead of watching for threats. They had grown comfortable after centuries of ruling without challenge. Peterson's team moved through the outpost room by room. The quantum fold armor made them nearly invisible. When Kethver soldiers tried to shoot them, the energy bolts passed right through their bodies. The aliens' faces showed pure terror as the humans appeared and disappeared like ghosts. Within 30 minutes, the outpost was silent. Peterson stood in the main control room while Hayes downloaded everything from their computers. The data showed ship movements, military strength reports, and communication logs from across this sector of the Empire. This is incredible, Hayes said as he read through the files. Peterson, the Kethver military is a joke. They have maybe 1,000 actual warships in this entire sector. The rest are automated defense platforms and slave ships with crews that hate their masters. What about their homeworld? Secton Prime is heavily defended, but most of their fleet is spread out across the Empire. They're trying to control too much territory with too few ships. Hayes copied the last of the data and disconnected from their systems. We could take half their border worlds before they even knew we were here. Peterson nodded. That's exactly what Captain Morrison wants to hear. But first, we need to make sure they know humans are back. She walked to the outpost's main communication array and began typing a message. The words were simple, but they would shake the Kethver Empire to its core. You took our world. We're taking yours. This is just the beginning. Peterson sent the message across every Kethver communication channel in the sector. Within hours, it would reach military bases, government offices, and civilian settlements across dozens of star systems. The message was signed with an old Earth symbol that the Kethver would recognize from their historical records. Meanwhile, far away on the Kethver homeworld of Secton Prime, High Overseer Veltar was having a bad day. The massive reptilian alien sat in his office reading reports from across the Empire. Ship disappearances at the border. Communication failures. Equipment breakdowns that seemed too organized to be accidents. Veltar was old enough to remember the stories his grandfather had told him. Stories about the pale mammals that had once lived on a small blue world. The humans had been weak and primitive, easy to destroy. But the old stories also said they were clever and dangerous when cornered. Impossible, Veltar said to himself. We killed them all 500,000 years ago. His assistant, a younger Kethver named Sekdan, entered the office with a datapad. Hi, Overseer, we've received some disturbing reports from the outer territories. More equipment failures? No, sir, this is different. Sekdan's voice shook slightly. Outpost 774 has gone completely silent. When the patrol ship arrived to investigate, they found the entire facility destroyed. All personnel dead, but sir, there were no signs of weapon damage. Veltar's blood went cold. What do you mean, no weapon damage? The soldiers appeared to have been killed by some kind of close combat weapons, knives or blades. But the base's defensive systems were still working. The shields were up, the automated guns were operational. Whoever did this got inside without triggering any alarms. Before Veltar could respond, another officer rushed into the room. Hi, Overseer, you need to see this. We've intercepted a message that was broadcast across the entire Epsilon sector. The officer activated a holographic display. The message appeared in both Kethver language and the old human writing that Veltar recognized from history books. You took our world, we're taking yours. This is just the beginning. The room fell silent. Veltar stared at the message for a long time. His worst fears were coming true. The humans were not extinct. Somehow they had survived. And now We're back, sir. What are your orders? Sekdan asked quietly. Veltar stood up slowly. His massive frame cast a shadow across the room. Send a message to all sector commanders, full military alert. Double the patrols on all border worlds. And contact Admiral Sekmoth. Tell him to prepare the war fleets. Sir, do you really think it's the humans? Veltar looked out the window at the sprawling city below. Millions of Kethver lived peaceful lives, never knowing that their empire had been built on the bones of countless other species. They had grown soft and comfortable. They had forgotten what real war looked like. I hope I'm wrong, Veltar said. But if I'm right, then we're about to face an enemy unlike anything this empire has seen in 50,000 years. The humans were dangerous when they were weak and primitive. If they've survived this long in hiding, they've had time to become something much worse. Back on the Silent Fury, Peterson and her team were already moving to their next target. Hayes had identified 17 more outposts and communication stations within range. Each one would be hit the same way, quick, silent, and deadly. How long before they figure out it's us? One of Peterson's soldiers asked. They already know, Peterson replied. That's the point. We want them scared. We want them looking over their shoulders. We want them to remember what they did to Earth and realize that humanity is coming to collect the debt. The Silent Fury disappeared into the darkness between stars, hunting for its next target. Behind them, the Kethver Empire began to wake up to a new reality. The humans were back, and they were not the same species that had fled Earth. 500,000 years ago, they had become something far more dangerous. They had become ghosts with a purpose, and that purpose was revenge. High Overseer Veltar stood before the Grand Assembly of the Kethver Empire. The massive chamber was filled with representatives from hundreds of different species. Reptilian Kethver sat alongside insectoid Vril, aquatic Morden, and dozens of other alien races that served the Empire. Most of them looked bored. They had been called to emergency sessions before, and they usually ended up being about trade disputes or budget problems. Fellow beings of the Empire, Veltar began, his deep voice echoing through the chamber. We face a threat that most of you believed was extinct. The humans have returned. A wave of confused murmuring swept through the assembly. Many of the younger representatives had never heard of humans. To them, the pale mammals were just stories from ancient history books. A Vril commander named Zixtac raised one of his 4 arms. High Overseer, with respect, the humans were destroyed 500,000 years ago. My species helped in that campaign. We turned their homeworld to glass and scattered their fleets. There are no humans left. Then explain this, Veltar. replied. He activated the chamber's main display screen. The message from Peterson's raid appeared in large letters across the wall. You took our world. We're taking yours. This is just the beginning. The chamber erupted into chaos. Some representatives laughed and said it was a fake message from rebels or pirates. Others argued that it might be real, but that a few surviving humans could not threaten an empire that controlled half the galaxy. A few of the older delegates sat quietly, remembering stories their grandparents had told them about human cunning and determination. "Order!" Voltaire shouted. The chamber slowly became quiet again. In the past month, we have lost contact with 47 outposts along our borders. Each one was destroyed in the same way. No weapon damage to the facilities, but all personnel killed by close combat weapons. The attackers got through our shields and automated defenses without triggering any alarms. Admiral Sekhmoth, the Empire's highest military commander, stood up. The old Kethver was scarred from battles fought decades ago, back when the Empire still had real enemies to fight. High Overseer, even if some humans survived, they cannot have many ships or soldiers. A few raids do not make them a serious threat. You're wrong, Voltaire said firmly. I've studied the historical records. The humans who fled Earth were not ordinary refugees. They were the smartest, strongest, and most determined members of their species. They've had 500,000 years to plan and prepare. If they're finally revealing themselves, it's because they're ready for war. Voltaire turned to address the entire assembly. I am activating Project Deep Strike. All dormant war fleets will be brought back to active status. All border defenses will be strengthened. And all military personnel will be placed on high alert. Many representatives began shouting objections. Project Deep Strike had not been used in 50,000 years. It would cost enormous amounts of money and resources. Some argued that it was an overreaction to a few border raids, but Voltaire was no longer listening to them. He had made his decision. The humans were back, and the Kethver Empire needed to be ready. Far away, in the darkness between stars, Captain Morrison stood on the bridge of New Genesis. Commander Lisa Grant approached him with a data pad showing incoming signals from across the galaxy. Captain, we're receiving responses to the Lazarus transmission, she said with excitement in her voice. 43 sleeper ships have answered so far. 4 more are sending partial signals, which means they're probably still in the process of waking up their crews. Morrison felt a surge of hope. He had sent the awakening signal 3 weeks ago, not knowing if any of the other human ships were still out there. For centuries, the scattered fleets had maintained radio silence to avoid detection by the Kethver. Now they were finally talking to each other again. What's their status? Morrison asked. Better than we hoped. Most of them have populations between 50,000 and 200,000. They've all been developing military technology during their long journey, just like we have. And Captain ... double quotes, Grant paused with a smile. They're all very angry about Earth. Colonel Danny Martinez entered the bridge carrying tactical reports. His job was to coordinate military operations between all the human fleets. Captain, I've been analyzing the responses from our fellow ships. We have enough firepower to hit the Kethver Empire simultaneously across the entire galaxy. Show me, Morrison said. Martinez activated the bridge's main display. A map of the galaxy appeared, with red dots marking Kethver military bases and green dots showing the locations of human sleeper ships. The green dots were scattered everywhere, hidden in dead star systems, asteroid fields, and the empty space between spiral arms. Each sleeper ship has been building weapons and training soldiers during their exile, Martinez explained. The ship Eternal Vigilance has developed plasma weapons that can cut through Kethver armor like paper. The Never Forget has created stealth fighters that are even more advanced than our Silent Fury. The Blood Debt has been specializing in electronic warfare. They can shut down entire Kethver communication networks. Morrison studied the map carefully. What's our total strength? Approximately 4 million combat-ready soldiers spread across 47 ships. Each ship also carries between 10 and 50 smaller attack vessels. We have enough firepower to hit every major Kethver installation in the galaxy at the same time. Dr. Susan Clark, Morrison's strategic advisor, joined the group. She was older than the others and had spent decades studying Kethver military tactics. Captain, I've been analyzing the intelligence that Colonel Peterson brought back. The Kethver Empire is much weaker than we expected, but it's also much larger. They control over 14,000 worlds. That's a lot of territory to defend, Morrison said. Exactly. They've spread themselves too thin. Most of their worlds are defended by automated systems and soldiers who don't want to fight for their Kethver masters. If we hit them hard and fast, many of their subject species might revolt and join us. Morrison nodded. This was exactly what he had hoped to hear. The Kethver had built their empire through fear and conquest. But empires built on fear could collapse quickly when that fear turned against the rulers. Demi, send a message to all sleeper ship commanders. Operation Lazarus is now active. Each ship will choose targets in their local area and attack simultaneously in 72 hours. The goal is not just to damage the Kethver military, but to show their subject species that the Empire can be beaten. Yes, sir, Martinez replied. What should we tell them about rules of engagement? Morrison was quiet for a moment. He thought about Earth burning under Kethver weapons. He thought about 500,000 years of exile. He thought about all the humans who had lived and died without ever seeing a real sunrise. Tell them that any Kethver military personnel are legitimate targets, but civilians and other species are to be protected when possible. We're not here to become the same kind of monsters that destroyed our world. We're here to end their empire and free the galaxy from their rule. Meanwhile, on a sleeper ship called Rising Phoenix, hidden in a distant nebula, Captain Karen White received Morrison's message. Her ship had been drifting through space for 500,000 years, keeping its crew alive through suspended animation and rotating shifts. Now it was time to wake everyone up. White walked through the ship's hibernation chambers as thousands of humans began to stir. These people had been born on Earth. They remembered blue skies and green forests. They remembered the day the Kethver ships appeared in orbit and began their bombardment. Attention all crew, White announced over the ship's communication system. This is Captain White. Today is the day we've been waiting for. The exile is over. It's time to go home. But home was no longer Earth. Home was wherever humans could build a new life free from the species that had tried to destroy them. And that meant the Kethver Empire had to fall across the galaxy. 47 other ships were receiving the same message. Millions of humans were waking from their long sleep to find that the time for hiding was over. They had weapons their ancestors could never have imagined. They had technology that made them faster, stronger, and smarter than any enemy they would face. Most importantly, they had something the Kethver had forgotten about, the human ability to hold a grudge for a very, very long time. Admiral Sekmoth stood in his command center on the fortress world of Kiktara, watching reports come in from across the Empire. His staff moved quickly between computer stations, trying to make sense of the scattered intelligence. Sir, we're getting reports of unusual activity in 7 different sectors, his aide reported. Long-range sensors are picking up energy signatures that don't match any known ship designs. Sekmoth studied the tactical displays. Something was happening, but he could not figure out what. The energy readings were spread across thousands of light years, too far apart to be connected, unless... Send a message to all fleet commanders, he ordered. Full battle readiness. Something big is coming and we need to be ready for it, but Sekmoth was already too late. The storm was not coming, it was already here, and humanity was about to show the galaxy what 500,000 years of anger could accomplish. Commander Nick Robinson watched the Kethver Naval Academy grow larger on his ship's main screen. The massive space station called Morthen Station floated in orbit around a gas giant, training the next generation of alien officers. In a few minutes, those young cadets would learn what real war looked like. All ships, this is Earth's vengeance, Robinson spoke into his communication system. Begin the attack. Around him, 12 other human ships appeared out of quantum fold. They had been invisible until this moment, hidden by technology the Kethver could not detect. The Academy's defense systems immediately began shooting, but their energy beams passed harmlessly through the phased human vessels. "Take us in close," Robinson ordered his pilot. "I want to dock directly with their main hangar." Earth's vengeance moved through the station's shields like they were not there. The ship's quantum fold systems let it exist in a different phase of reality, making Kethver weapons useless. Robinson watched alien defenders scramble to their battle stations. Confusion and fear clear on their reptilian faces, the ship landed inside the Academy's main hangar with a soft thud. Robinson and his Marines stepped out wearing their advanced armor and carrying weapons that hummed with deadly energy. The Kethver cadets who rushed to meet them were young and had never seen real combat. "Surrender now, and you will not be harmed," Robinson announced in the Kethver language. His voice echoed through the hangar. "We are here for your military data, not to kill children." Most of the cadets dropped their weapons immediately. A few tried to fight, but their training weapons could not penetrate human armor. Within 30 minutes, Robinson's forces had control of the entire Academy. His technical team began downloading everything from the station's computers while his soldiers secured the facility. "Sir, you need to see this," said Lieutenant Kate Murphy, Robinson's intelligence officer. She had accessed the Academy's main database and was reading through classified files. "These aren't just training records. They have the complete defense plans for the entire Kethver Empire." Robinson looked at the data streaming across Murphy's screen. Ship positions, weapon specifications, communication codes, and strategic plans. The young cadets at this academy had been studying the Empire's most sensitive military secrets. "Download everything," Robinson ordered. "This intelligence will help our other fleets hit targets across the galaxy." Meanwhile, in another part of space, Captain Helen Davis commanded 6 human ships approaching the Nexus yards. This was where the Kethver Empire built its largest warships, a massive industrial complex that stretched for hundreds of kilometers. "Through space, Major Jenkins, what do you see?" Davis asked her tactical officer. Major Paul Jenkins studied his scanner readings. 12 capital ships under construction, plus maybe 300 smaller vessels. The yards are defended by automated gun platforms and a small patrol fleet. And the workers? Mostly slave laborers from conquered species. The actual Kethver supervisors number less than 1,000. Davis nodded. This was exactly what human intelligence had predicted. The Kethver used other species to do their hard work while they sat in comfortable offices giving orders. "Launch the drone swarms," Davis commanded. Thousands of small robotic fighters poured out of the human ships. Each drone was no bigger than a person, but they carried advanced cutting tools and electronic warfare systems. The Kethver automated defenses tried to shoot them down, but there were too many targets moving too fast. Drones swarmed over the shipyard like angry insects. They cut through construction equipment, disabled communication systems, and downloaded technical data from every computer they could find. Within hours, the Nexus yards were shut down completely, but Davis was not finished. Her ships moved closer to the yards and began using tractor beams to steal entire sections of the facility. If the humans could not build their own ships in the yards, they would take the yards themselves and move them somewhere safe. "The slave workers are asking to join us," reported Lieutenant Commander Bob Stevens from the communication station. "They want to fight against the Kethver." "Tell them they're welcome," Davis replied. "Anyone who wants freedom from the Empire can come with us." Across the galaxy, similar attacks were happening at the same time. Human ships appeared out of nowhere to strike at military bases, communication centers, and industrial facilities. The Kethver Empire, which had controlled half the galaxy for centuries, suddenly found itself under assault from an enemy they thought was extinct. High Overseer Veltar stood in his command center on Secton Prime, watching reports flood in from across the Empire. Red warning lights flashed on tactical displays as base after base went silent. "How many attacks?" he asked his aide. "Over 200 confirmed strikes, High Overseer. They're hitting us everywhere at once." "Communication networks are failing," Our response fleets can't coordinate because the humans are jamming our signals. Veltar felt a cold fear growing in his chest. This was not a series of random raids. This was a coordinated military campaign by an enemy that had spent centuries planning every detail. Where is Admiral Sekmoth? His fleet is 3 days away from the nearest attack site. By the time he arrives, the humans will be gone. And our other fleets? Scattered across the Empire trying to respond to attacks. But sir, the humans aren't staying to fight. They hit hard, take what they want, and disappear before our forces can reach them. Veltar slammed his fist on the command table. The humans were fighting like ghosts, appearing just long enough to cause maximum damage before vanishing back into the darkness. This was not how the Kethver fought. They preferred direct battles with massive fleets facing each other in open space. Sir, there's something else, his aide said nervously. We're receiving reports of slave uprisings on 17 worlds. The conquered species are rebelling against our rule. They think the humans are winning. Veltar felt his empire beginning to crumble. The Kethver had ruled through fear for so long that they had forgotten how quickly that fear could turn against them. If their subject species believed the empire was weak, they would rise up in massive numbers. Back on New Genesis, Captain Morrison received reports from human fleets across the galaxy. Each attack had been a complete success. The Kethver military was in chaos, their communication networks were failing, and their subject species were beginning to revolt. Dr. Ryan Cooper entered the bridge with his latest technical analysis. Captain, we've downloaded massive amounts of Kethver technology and military data. Their ship designs are actually quite advanced, but they've stopped innovating. Most of their equipment is centuries old. What about their numbers? Morrison asked. That's the interesting part. They have about 15,000 warships total, but most are scattered across the Empire performing police duties. Only about 3,000 are actually military vessels designed for serious combat. Commander Lisa Grant joined the conversation. Our intelligence suggests that if we can destroy their main battle fleets, the rest of their military will collapse. The Empire is held together by the belief that the Kethver are unbeatable. Once we prove that wrong, their subject species will do most of our work for us. Morrison studied the tactical displays showing human fleet positions across the galaxy. His people had waited 500,000 years for this moment. They had hidden in the darkness, planning and preparing while the Kethver grew soft and comfortable. Send a message to all fleet commanders, Morrison ordered. Phase 2 begins immediately. We've proven we can hurt them. Now it's time to destroy their ability to fight back. Dr. Susan Clark approached with a concerned expression. Captain, we're receiving long-range sensor readings from the Kethver homeworld. They're calling back their scattered fleets and concentrating them for defense. Good, Morrison said with a cold smile. Let them gather their ships in one place. It will make our job easier. He turned to address his senior staff. The Kethver Empire has ruled the galaxy through fear and violence for too long. Today we've shown them that humanity will not be intimidated. Tomorrow we're going to show them what happens when you try to destroy a species that never forgets and never forgives. In space stations and military bases across the Empire, Kethver commanders tried to understand what had hit them. Ships that could not be detected or damaged. Soldiers who appeared and disappeared like ghosts. An enemy that struck everywhere at once and then vanished before any response was possible. For the first time in centuries, the Kethver Empire was afraid. And the humans were just getting started. Captain Jake Morrison stood on the bridge of New Genesis as 47 human ships moved through space towards Sekthan Prime. The Kethver homeworld grew larger on the main screen, protected by massive orbital fortresses and the largest fleet the Empire could gather. This would be the final battle of a war that had lasted 500,000 years. Admiral Sekmoth has positioned his entire fleet around the planet, reported Commander Lisa Grant. 300 warships plus the orbital defense platforms. They're using everything they have left, Morrison nodded. The past month had seen Human forces destroy Kethver military bases across the galaxy. Subject species were rebelling on hundreds of worlds. The empire that had once controlled half the galaxy was falling apart, but its leaders had gathered their remaining strength for one last stand. Are our people ready? Morrison asked. Colonel Amy Peterson, now his second-in-command, checked the status reports from all human ships. Every vessel is at full combat readiness. Our soldiers have been waiting their entire lives for this moment. Morrison activated the communication system to address all 47 ships. This is Captain Morrison to all fleet commanders. Today we finish what the Kethver started 500,000 years ago. They destroyed our world and scattered our people across the galaxy, but we survived. We grew stronger. And now we're here to collect the debt they owe us. The human fleet split into attack groups as they approached. Secthon Prime, the Kethver orbital fortresses, immediately began firing massive energy beams, but the human ships phased through the attacks using their quantum fold technology. Admiral Sekhmoth's warships charged forward to meet them, their weapons blazing uselessly against targets they could not hit. Morrison's flagship, Final Testament, led the assault on the largest orbital fortress. The massive Kethver structure was the size of a small moon, bristling with weapons and protected by powerful shields. But human technology had advanced far beyond anything the aliens could understand. Colonel Martinez, launch all fighters. Morrison ordered. Thousands of small human ships poured out of the larger vessels. Each fighter was piloted by humans with neural link combat systems that made their reactions faster than computer calculations. They swarmed around the Kethver defenses like angry hornets, striking weak points and disappearing before return fire could hit them on the planet's surface. Colonel Peterson led ground forces in capturing the planetary shield generators. Her soldiers used quantum fold armor to walk through solid walls and appear inside heavily defended bunkers. The Kethver defenders had never faced an enemy that could ignore their strongest defenses. Shield generators are down, Peterson reported. The planet is open to assault. Morrison watched the tactical display as human forces systematically destroyed the orbital defenses. The Kethver fought bravely, but their weapons and tactics belonged to a different age. They were trying to fight ghosts with swords and spears. Admiral Sekhmoth's flagship, a massive dreadnought called Empire's Fist, moved to engage Morrison's ship directly. The old Kethver admiral activated his communication system to speak across space. Human Captain, I am Admiral Sekhmoth of the Kethver Empire. Your species should have accepted extinction with dignity. Now you force us to destroy you again. Morrison replied calmly, Admiral, my species learned something during our 500,000 years in exile. We learned that some debts can only be paid in full. The two massive ships began a deadly dance around Secthon Prime. Empire's Fist fired everything it had at Final Testament, but the human ship phased through the attacks while returning fire with weapons that cut through Kethver armor like paper. The battle lasted 3 hours before Sekhmoth's ship finally exploded in a brilliant flash of light. With their admiral dead and their defenses crumbling, the remaining Kethver forces began to surrender. Morrison's fleet had lost only 6 ships while destroying the entire enemy fleet. The orbital fortresses were silent, their crews either dead or captured. Morrison took a small shuttle down to the planet's surface. He wanted to end this warface, to face with the leader who had tried to continue his ancestors' genocide. The shuttle landed in the ruins of the Grand Assembly building, where Kethver leaders had once made decisions that affected trillions of lives across the galaxy. High Overseer Veltar waited in what remained of his office. The massive reptilian alien sat behind his desk, his government collapsed and his empire in flames. He looked up as Morrison entered, flanked by 2 human soldiers. So you are the leader of the humans, Veltar said. His voice was tired and defeated. I confess I underestimated your species. We thought we had killed you all. Morrison sat down across from the alien leader. You tried? You turned our world to glass and scattered my people across the galaxy. You thought that would be the end of us. Why do you fight so fiercely for a world that was destroyed so long ago? Veltar asked. Your Earth has been dust for 500,000 1,000 years. None of your people alive today ever saw it. Morrison was quiet for a moment. Then he spoke with the weight of centuries in his voice. Because some debts can only be paid in full. You didn't just destroy a planet. You tried to erase an entire species from existence. You failed. Veltar nodded slowly. What happens now? Will you kill us all as we killed you? No, Morrison said firmly. We're not you. We won't commit genocide, even against the species that tried to destroy us. But the Kethver Empire ends today. Your military will be disbanded. Your people will be relocated to a single world under human supervision. And you will never again have the power to destroy other species. Over the following months, the galaxy began to change. The Kethver Empire was dissolved, and its hundreds of member species were granted independence. Many of them asked for human protection, having seen what Morrison's people could do to defend the innocent. Captain Morrison stood on the observation deck of his flagship, looking out at something that would have been impossible a year ago. Construction ships were building humanity's first permanent world in 500,000 years. They called it New Earth. And it would serve as the capital of a new kind of government. Dr. Susan Clark joined him at the window, holding reports from across the galaxy. 43 species have asked to join our federation, she said. 7 former Kethver colonies want full integration with human settlements. The Vril are offering to share their advanced medical technology in exchange. For our protection? Morrison smiled as he watched the construction lights grow brighter. What about the Kethver themselves? They've been moved to refuge, a garden world in the Outer Rim. They're under permanent observation, but they're being treated well. Some of their younger generation are even asking to learn about human culture. Good, we're not in the business of revenge anymore. We're in the business of making sure this never happens again. Commander Peterson approached with the latest military reports. Captain, our deep space sensors have detected several other aggressive empires in distant parts of the galaxy. Species that conquer and enslave others just like the Kethver did. Morrison nodded. He had expected this. The galaxy was a big place, and the Kethver had not been the only species that believed in ruling through fear and violence. Then we have work to do, he said. Send messages to all our fleet commanders. The war against the Kethver Empire is over, but humanity's job is just beginning. Dr. Ryan Cooper joined the group with technical specifications for new ship designs. Captain, with the technology we captured from the Kethver and the resources offered by our new allies, we can build a fleet unlike anything the galaxy has ever seen. Morrison looked out at the stars, thinking about the future. His people had returned from exile to claim justice for their destroyed world, but they had found something more important than revenge. They had found a chance to build a galaxy where no species would ever again face extinction at the hands of conquerors. The long exile is over, Morrison said quietly. But our real mission is just starting. We came back to make the Kethver pay for what they did to Earth. Now we stay to make sure no one else ever has to pay that price. In the distance, New Earth continued to grow, its lights a beacon of hope in the cosmic darkness. Humanity had returned from the void, not just as survivors, but as guardians of a better future for all the galaxy's children.